And back in Nigeria, the World Bank says the government needs to fast-track policies and actions that would improve the country's economic development after the twin policies of fuel subsidy removal and FX market alignment were introduced in 2023. Two economists from the World Bank, Nigeria, and the Lagos Business School were speaking to this and more earlier in the week at a session moderated by Arise business anchor, Bosin Mofaye. Listen.
From our perspective, we think the bumpy road, like you are on the bumpy road, but that bumpy road is leading to the right direction. The thing is to make sure that you continue on it, like continue with the reform agendas, continue. You need to focus on revenues, you need to focus on proper financing, not distortionary financing. But just don't get scared of the bumps too much, just keep going. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. On the FX restrictions and the competitiveness. So yes, we do see the BOP numbers, and so first of all, I think removing the restriction from the 43 items was a good step, not only from a trade perspective, I would say, but also from an FX perspective. It was causing the fragmentation of the FX market, and that's primarily where the decision came from. We think, our view is, as the World Bank, that even if there is a trade policy on restricting imports, that should be done by customs, that should be done by Ministry of Commerce or the trade policy people, not CBN. That's not CBN's job. CBN's job is controlling inflation and deepening the financial markets. That is what the CBN is supposed to do. It's not supposed to be in quasi-fiscal schemes. It should not be doing that. It should not be implementing trade policy for the government. It should be just doing that. So I think that what our thing is, the 43 items, we hail that as a good reform because it helped reduce the fragmentation of the market. On the trade side, yes, definite improvements that we do think. We think removing trade restrictions in Nigeria can help people out of poverty because it helps keep the prices low. Now your Panadol example, right? We are hoping that if you allow cleaner, easier imports of Panadol, that 25 pence, Panadol can come here and it'll only be like something, right? If you saw an opportunity, it can come in and make it cheaper for you and other people to get Panadol. But because of all these restrictions, the supplier of Panadol can charge whoever managed to bring it in first has to pay a lot of costs to get it in because of all the barriers. And then that cost ends up, and then they can charge whatever because there's no competition. They're not scared somebody else is going to pick up all those costs and come in. So we think that, yes, you can protect your own producers, right? If you keep the trade restrictions up, you protect your own producers. But you're doing that at the cost of your consumers. And that's the majority of Nigerians.
Private sector team, they are supporting, we have a project called SEBA, that's State Enabling Business Environment. So we go through some of those projects to assist states to create what they have competitive advantage in. Yes, you're right, so that they can also help to produce and export, but we have some structural barriers, affecting production and exports. For instance, you know that we have issues with infrastructure. That also affects our competitiveness. We've had issues. We've had stuff like, an average producer suffers. The cost of energy constitutes more than 50 or 30% of the cost of your total business. Power is there, infrastructure is there, moving goods from one place to another is there. So we've heard stories of how it's difficult to import goods from Africa than importing from Europe, right? So we have some of the structural barriers that we think can be improved on, and with the African continental trade, we see a big potential that Nigeria can tap into, even at the subnational levels, right? So some of these states, they have, lithium is a fast rising product or commodity. They're trying to establish a lithium battery processing center in Nigeria. I think we have competitive advantages in those areas, and also it's the type of exports matters. Previously we've been doing a lot of agricultural exports. Does it generate large effects? Yes. No. Does it command much demand? Generally, Africa we do more of commodities and agric. I think there are other avenues we can explore. To be more competitive and tap into the African continental free trade.
What more would you want to see the World Bank do for Nigeria, and in what specific areas?
Okay, I like that question.
Let me make it that short.
Yeah, I like your question so much because, you know, while they were making their presentation, I was penning down some things. So I was asking myself if Nigeria's problem is macroeconomics. Monetary policy and the real sector, the real economy have parted ways long time ago. That whatever happens there doesn't really detect anything in the real sector. So I'm asking myself, in the Nigeria situation, economics is actually is no longer the right-hand variable. It is now the left-hand variable. In fact, it's the dependent, not independent variable. So if you look at those factors that drive aggregate demand, whether it's the wealth effect, the interest rate effect, or the foreign exchange effect. So if you look at those three, what you observe is that, of course, it's inflation that determines them, the CPI, right? So when inflation is going on the way it has gone up, and then we know that the major contributing factor to that is government printing of money, and then inflation is that high, people's wealth, purchasing power has completely, dissolved. That's a weight effect, right? What is the impact on aggregate demand? Aggregate demand goes down. Then the interest rate effect, okay? Because of that, interest rate that is matching up with inflation has gone up. How much is the cost of raising funds in Nigeria today? The cost of capital, has hit the roof. Then the exchange rate effect, of course, you know that, our naira has completely dissolved. Okay, so aggregate demand has shrunk and is turning on firms. So the threshold for profitability or viability in Nigeria today has gone up so much up that only very few companies can survive, and we are seeing it. How many companies have left Nigeria in the past few days? You are talking about paracetamol. Unilever has closed shop. GSK has closed shop. How many others? There are so many teetering, at the verge of exit, from Nigeria because of the, I wouldn't say, as the reforms were they properly thought through? So those were the kind of advice that I had expected the World Bank to give.
When we talk about macroeconomic stability, from reforms to the new open results, what further things do you think we can do to achieve reforms? Because this pair of professionals from the World Bank have shown that we've achieved some measurable results, but it doesn't look like the surgery is going on too well as planned, or perhaps a bit of complications along the line.
Thank you very much, Wilson. I'm not sure that the surgery is going on well. The reason being that I think we are focusing on things that are secondary, not primary. So you talked about Tunisia, about tourism. The Economic Organization wrote a report just a few days ago about how insecurity is causing havoc across Nigeria. Of course, nobody can come to Nigeria if we have a high level of insecurity. And if you look at the inflation, a major component of inflation is food inflation. And people cannot go to farm if they are not secure. You can see the wave of insecurity across the world. Is how do you produce? So, and the only area we can produce is agriculture, which is actually an area of competitive advantage, and maybe oil and gas as well. But these two key sectors, oil and gas and agriculture, cannot grow because there is a high level of insecurity in the country. So what we are supposed to do is for government, now that they remove subsidy and rise the exchange rate, is to come out with a detailed policy on agriculture. Now we are in dry season. We are now moving very close to rainy season. We've not heard from the Minister of Agriculture.